This hangout is on air live. There we go. It just flipped over. Englentine, testing, you there?
I am. Yeah. Hello.
Before we
Yeah.
get started tonight, I got a little bit of a bone to pick with you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, on our obscenely expensive 67.5 inch HD, Super HD TV set that we've been watching the Bondathons on, I noticed you've been leaving like some smears on there, and I don't know what's going on with the whole Pierce Brosnan thing, but I think you've been spooging a little too much on it, and so I'm not in a very good mood tonight because I was forced to sit down and dredge up some bad stuff with some of these movies. But as always tonight, for those that are joining, those getting ready to join soon, you're listening live to to the Xtreme Movie Podcast here on from an undisclosed location in Pine Hills, Florida, in the underground bunker. Englentine, you're going to be cleaning that later, so we can finish off next week, just so you know.
Okay.
Not happy about it, just like I'm not happy about some of these films here. So
I make the mess. I don't clean it up.
that's unacceptable, sir. Like some of the movies we're going to be discussing. Um,
Right.
as we go into this week's versions, we're going to be talking, of course, about the two Dalton films, and then we're going to be talking about the Pierce Brosnan. And then next week, it looks like we're going to finish up with the leftovers a little bit.
It'll
So,
be the Daniel Craig films because there's four of those, and then it'll be Sean Connery's Never Say Never and George Lazenby Honor Majesty's Secret Service. Yeah.
You are correct on that, sir. Um, Venkman's just joined us. Good evening, Dr. Venkman. You bring up the question of the night that I hope is answered by the end, like on all of our streams. Is it extreme? Because that's one of the things that we have to talk about, I think, before we start actually reviewing these movies. And we're halfway through. We've had our two Bonds that we've covered so far. We're getting ready to start and relaunch with the third, who's only in two films. So we kind of left off last week mentioning that, hey, one of the worst Roger Moore Bonds probably still watchable, where some of Connery's are not. And so I think that's the theme that's going to come up tonight. So Timothy Dalton,
Roger Moore did have Moonraker, which is unwatchable.
And currently, out of all the films, is in the top one or two, which we'll get to on our rank and review show, which I think Venkman, if I'm correct, wants to maybe possibly be on. So Venkman, we're probably going to look at doing a recap show and getting some people on like yourself that are interested in it. We've gotten some lists that's been pretty exciting. So going into Timothy Dalton, before we get started on that first film, what's your initial impressions about Timothy Dalton and what just in general the two that he's done?
Oh, goodness. Well, here's the sad thing. And this is something I've noticed. Every Bond but Lazenby has a horrible movie. And unfortunately, Timothy Dalton only had two. So
he only had two films. Why do you say
unfortunately? Yeah, which he's batting 50% at least. Okay, first of all, at first I didn't like it when I'm talking about let's put your mind back in what was it, 1980s, where when he takes over. See, the reason, of course, you told the joke, and Gail is in on it as well because she believes I have a huge or had a huge man crush on Pierce Brosnan because I don't know if you remember, I was a huge Remington Steele fan.
That you were.
Absolutely. I mean, this is one of those, can you go out tonight? Nope. Remington Steele is on. I got to watch my Remington Steele with Stephanie Zimbalist and Pierce Brosnan. And I heard Pierce Brosnan was going to be the new Bond. And I'm like, oh, yes. He's going to be James Bond. It's going to be awesome. And then Timothy Dalton takes it. And all I really knew Timothy Dalton from was, of course, Flash Gordon.
That's right.
Yeah, if he'd been in other things, he might have been that I might remember, but I don't, that aren't coming to mind right now. But really, wasn't he, what was it, Prince Eric? And when I saw it, I thought, you know what? I can see it. But when the movie came out, I thought something was wrong. And he was a bit off. And I don't think he ever had time to really find his footing.
Interesting. I'll agree with you that something was wrong, and we'll talk about that because there's definitely something wrong with the Bond films, I think, from this very first movie, The Living Daylights. So for me, I knew him just like you in Flash Gordon, and I thought, oh, wow, here's a serious guy. Whereas I, didn't think of Roger Moore as not being serious. He was just a different kind of British English type gentleman, as well as Sean Connery, who of course is Scottish. But this guy, I just was like, no, this guy's got a stick up his ass, you know, and he played him really differently. And actually, he played him in a way that was, I think, a lot different, whereas Moore kind of just did, it seemed like the opposite, or at least that's, you know, it seemed like how they played it a little bit. Okay, fine, I understand that. You want to make a mark be different, you go complete opposite. Well, here's a guy that kind of triangulated, as we like to say in the political sphere, and just did something different. Like, for example, in The Living Daylights, it starts off, it's a decent opening scene. It's not the best, it's not the worst, it's serviceable.
The
But
paintball.
yeah, it's the paintball thing. But the thing is, you know, when he, at the end of it, when he kind of just, you know, he's parachuting down into the boat with the lady in the air, and he's like, yeah, I'll be there in an hour. And the lady like serves him a martini. He's like, make that two. You're like, okay, he doesn't want to do the cheese. You could just tell already, but he was just so damn
Yeah.
serious. So for me, I liked that.
Okay, you jumped right on into the movie. So yes, I got to say, if you don't mind, I want to talk about the opening scene as well, because it did really explain to us that we're going to have a problematic movie. And I thought the action scenes were great, but you're absolutely right. Once he got to the boat, he had to say the line, and it just didn't feel right. And all of a sudden I'm thinking, okay. And I watched this yesterday, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we are getting a serious Bond, but this movie was made for Roger Moore. It was written with Roger Moore in mind.
I don't know about that.
Well, we'll keep going. And that's
go ahead.
That's why I think Dalton, he can do the action. And one of the better things about Dalton is that he is in the moment. If he's in a dangerous situation, his face, his body, everything's tense, and he is living in that moment. It's not like Roger Moore. Roger Moore was always on a sound stage.
Yes.
He was always in front of a green screen. So Roger Moore was never in danger. His stunt doubles were living the life of fucking death, but Roger Moore, not a problem. So it was always a little bit, oh, this guy's punching me now. Ha 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 ha. Roger Dalton, on the other hand, he was, I now must kill you. So he was always present in the moment. And his seriousness really didn't vibe with the script that they had going. And I think that was one of the main problems with Living Daylights, is that it's a Roger Moore film starring a much more serious actor.
I'll be the contrarian and say that if they had just cut out a lot of the little crap in there and let him be serious and kept that tone through it and had a more adult version of Bond, which is the one Dalton was attempting to portray, you would think that the writers would have half a brain and kind of write it more around that. And of course, you're going to still have some of those forced things in there, you know, the different sayings, having the bed women and this and that. But this Bond is a little bit different. For example, you're talking about a guy that didn't have necessarily a lot of gadgets in there. He did have the nice car, and there's some stuff in there, whatever. But at least for the car stuff, to me, it was done better than it was even in Goldfinger, which we had talked about. I agree with you. The physical stuff, those things just came off really, really well. What I liked was early on when he does when he goes to the theater there, and he's got his contact, and his contact's just being, you know, bigger jerk off than you can imagine. You're like, man, you want to see this guy get punched. The whole opening thing was kind of cool, with them trying to smuggle this guy through the pipeline and everything too. And he just had this bitterness, but really sharpness to his intellect with it. And he smoked, which at the time people still smoked a crap ton in the 80s. But for Bond to smoke on screen, that was huge. And I was like, man, this guy's really playing it straight to the vest here. I was really starting to pop for that. But one of the things that we have not discussed, and I don't think should really be the emphasis tonight, is what makes a Bond girl. So I think a lot of people are down on the cellist, the blonde lady who's playing it, but him choosing to not shoot her and just shoot the cello and some of the other things with it. This is just kind of like a back to basics kind of spy movie, East versus West type, and frankly, I enjoyed it. I really, really did like it.
Part of the problem I have with Miriam Dabo as the Bond girl is that she's on vacation. And that's also part of the problem I have with the movie. The action scenes, once again, are A-okay, but it's like, hey, we're on a mission. And afterwards, we're going to get ice cream. There's no real sense of urgency in the scenes that are between the action. It's like, oh, why? Yeah, we're gonna just kick back and relax. We're watching TV. Kablam. Okay, it's time to
But she
run.
doesn't know that that's kind of the whole point. He has to keep her in the dark, as long as he can until, he can find the other guy. And the other guy, I'm going to just go ahead and say right now, this is where I will agree with you, as opposed to be a contrarian about the ending part of the movie. Instead of having like the evil volcano lair or something stupid or ludicrous, the problem with this is there's really three bad guys because
Yeah.
the main guy that they smuggled out, you knew he was a bad guy just because he was hamming it up when they're on the English estate. You've got actually, well, you got one good and two bad of the bad guys. He was bad. You've got the guy that I call him the milk carton guy, who's actually the bad guy hitman. There's a great fight scene that doesn't even have Bond in it, in a kitchen, and he's breaking the bad guy number one out of that English estate. That was fantastic. That's a nice little
Yeah.
scene there.
Yeah.
Strangling.
He
That
was a
was good
good
stuff.
he was a good henchman. I'm gonna give the henchman that he sold the movie. I mean, if there's anything good about the film, it is the henchman. The
Which,
villains are
yeah,
boring as balls. None of them are particularly exciting. And you've got John Rhys Davies in this,
yeah,
Gimli from Lord of the
he
Rings,
was
and
yeah, he was underused completely in this. I mean, with his presence and his voice, I was like, man, if they just kind of didn't have these two bad guys and maybe just had one more serious one that was just, normal human, that would be great. Because I tell you, I, I don't understand how Joe Don Baker got cast in anything. I liked him in Fletch and some other stuff, Mitchell, but my God, as soon as he was on screen in this movie, I'm really not trying to rag on a guy. It really just made it stupid to me. And this
he
is
did
where I'll
not
agree with
fit
you.
here. He does fit later. We're going to talk about him. He fits better there than he does here. Because
Yeah.
he's got a voice and a demeanor that says you are this character, and that's the problem. He tried to be a character actor in this film, and whoever cast him was out of their freaking gourd. When he's not a character actor, he's a personality actor,
Yeah,
and
it's
he
a
should
good
be
description.
he should be cast because you want Joe Don Baker. It's one of those things. Hey, we should get a so and so type. Well, why don't we just get so and so? That's the kind of guy. I want a Joe Don Baker type. Okay, well, just get fucking Joe Don Baker. And that's the kind of thing. Hold on just a sec. Venkman's been typing. Let's read something off here. He says Dalton is now on DC's Doom Patrol, which is an excellent TV show. Yes, he's very serious. When he did his own thing to the Russian defector out on his own without telling the other agent his plan.
Need to know basis. Yes. Yeah, exactly. And he delivers it. He delivers it so good. And the guy's like, well, she'll fire you. I'll get him to fire you. And he's like, that'll be the best thing that happens. Just kind of cynically under his breath. I'm like, man, this guy's really, really owning it.
Oh, and he's also talking about how you see my face. Yes, I am on my Disney channel right now, the Homegrown Tourist. And those channels do a lot better. These channels, I guess, since I'm on it, do a lot better when, people know you. So, yep, I've got myself up there because old, ugly, and fat is what everybody wants. All right. This was Bond film. Couldn't remember until watching it. And that's actually, I just told Rob, I watched it yesterday and I can't remember anything. So I'm actually, I've got Netflix so I could see the little boxes underneath and oh yeah, okay. I remember that part. I remember because I can't remember anything from this movie and it's been a day. So,
Well, I'll tell you, I didn't really, like I said, I wasn't a huge fan of Joe, but the ending was solid. I always talk about, I really almost hate the third acts of most Bond movies, but this ending was pretty decent. I'm like, see, when we saw it, I'm under the impression, and I may be wrong, I thought we saw it together like a midnight movie because I know I saw it and I just remember the crowd really being into it and they were just so happy that Bond was finally back on screen again that it wasn't really kind of like some of the silliness we're going to talk about.
No, we saw
shortly.
Daylights. I think it was Daylights. It was the one we saw.
Right, that's the one we're talking about.
No, License to Kill. I'm sorry,
okay.
The one with the tankers. That's the next one.
Yes, but for this one, I mean, overall, it's you mentioned the Dr. No not being one of your favorites overall, and how it just wasn't a Bond film yet. I look at this one and go, of the three Bonds, this was pretty much the best first Bond. I mean, Dr. No I like for certain reasons, but this is fairly complete. I think there's some bad things in there that they could have done better. But I think this is probably where you're starting to get a first few progressive elements in it which don't work. And the one scene that sticks out in my mind that makes me cringe, and when you say it wasn't very good, this is the first scene I thought of it. It's the scene where Bond's going back to he's going back to the HQ, and Moneypenny's this ditzy looking blonde or whatever that's just drooling all over him, and she's like, well, if you ever want to come listen to my Barry Manilow records, it's like everybody in the audience groaned. It was pathetic. It's like that did not work, did not need to be needed. But then you've got the great device that Q makes, and he goes, watch this, Bond. And it's some guy, and he's got this big boom box or whatever like that, and it fires this rocket out of it, and he goes,
oh
it's
yeah,
something working for the Americans. We call it a ghetto blaster. When he said that, the audience just lost. I was like, that's good stuff. That's the British humor that they needed more of, rather than the silly stuff. That's the problem with British stuff. You got to take the good humor with the stupid humor that's like not funny.
Okay. I got to say, overall, this is an absolute forgettable film to me.
Decent, solid film.
I think if I'm doing another marathon, I'll watch it, but this is never going to be a movie that I'm going to put on by itself.
Strangulation to Aha and the Pretenders. I'm in.
Okay, yeah. Have fun with it. Yeah, it's just not for me. I'm not a fan of this particular Bond.
Okay, well, the next Bond film that we'll be discussing now, of course, is his second film, which of the two that he's made, we think is probably a little better, I'm just going to guess, and that's the License to Kill that came out like 2 years later. Why don't you go ahead and start with that?
Oh, my goodness gracious. License to Kill. I'm trying to figure out, I'm trying to remember how it started.
It started with a very bad intro song. Not a fan of it, as opposed to The Living Daylights, which had a great theme song. I
remember this one because, okay, yeah, I'm going to come off like a real perv on this one. Not like I don't. Okay, this is the wedding one. This is Felix Leitner. Okay, so I'm digging on the wedding setting. I really am. I like the fact that we're seeing James Bond and his friends. You know, he's a normal guy because
he's with his bros.
Yeah, it's almost like
man down, get married.
It's almost like you always see Batman, you never see Bruce Wayne. And even when, but that's a bad example because Bruce Wayne, even out of costume, still is kind of Batman. But the point being is right here we are getting to see the hair down a little bit, and I enjoyed that. I actually like this opening scene. The song is not good, but here's the thing.
It's not.
I swear to gosh, I'm watching this. I went, wait a second. And I see the Asian lady dance across. I go, is that Playboy Playmate Diane Sue? And so I was like, no. Yeah, okay, Diane, because I know her, she went by Diane Lee after a while. I looked it up. Yes, that's Playboy Playmate Diane Sue. And I was like, oh shit, I remember a Playboy Playmate from 30 freaking years ago. And that's what I got out of the opening scene. So yeah, song sucks, but this is one of my favorite openings as far as credits are concerned. And it was just kind of funny because wait a second, I remember that. So yeah, I like I said, I'm gonna come off of as a perv on that one. The opening credits, if you're wondering, that's the name of the Asian lady that's dancing across the screen, is Diane Lee, formerly known as Diane Sue. The opening sequence.
That wasn't the movie that made you spooge over the TV set that you now need to clean, is it?
No.
Oh, excuse me, that's a Pierce thing. Okay.
Yes. It was all Brosnan. Let's see. They even bring up the note that Bond hates wedding because he was married once. Yes, they do. He does bring that up. I liked it. Of course, we had what's her name from Three's Company playing the wife. It's just it's very inviting. You get led into this particular piece of life that you normally don't get to see in a James Bond film, and then it's taken all away from him. You know, and that's his normal life. This is what he does on his off time. This movie's good. Yeah. I like this one.
This is good.
So yeah, I don't have a lot of bad things to say, and we'll talk about it more as we go, of course. And you can put your 2 cents in on the beginning and the opening wedding scene. I also thought, okay, this is cheesy fun. The fact that they stop the bad guy, they capture him, and now we're going to the wedding in parachutes. Woo!
That was cool.
Okay,
Yeah, that's how
yeah,
you do it.
yeah. So
But
how
yeah, I
about
liked
you?
it a lot. Yeah.
The opening sequence and the credits and all that kind of stuff. Where do you stand?
Well, one of the reasons why I liked the two Dalton films is part of what you said, as far as not a lot of CGI, and the action scenes were a lot better than the Moores and certainly the Connerys with the sped up motion and all that crap. To me, here, it was really nice seeing it, especially actually down in Key West, down here in Florida.
Yeah.
Key West isn't that big, but you can shoot things in a way to make it look like there's a lot more stuff around. But it was like watching Miami Vice, which I was a huge fan of back in the day. You could actually feel it like you were there, the way they filmed it, the heat coming off of things, just the tropical background. It was a nice change of pace, as opposed to always being in, say, Paris, London, Tokyo, the big places, and all the Central America locations that he's getting ready to go to, which is a little different as well. I thought the movie was very good. I enjoyed it a lot. I actually thought the Bond lady that teamed up with him was pretty good.
We're going to get into that also.
Well, I was saving that for you, although I probably shouldn't. But I want you to have all your spooge out before we talk about Pierce. I just want you busting dry nuts then. But for me, this was just a continuation of what the first film was, minus a 3-for-1 baddie and Joe Don Baker being one of them, and some of the silliness. They kind of cut that stuff out and they improved over the first film. And to me, watching this, I was like, this is just a good spy stuff, but it's updated. It really felt like it was happening mid to late 80s and that it was realistic. You can't be saving the world every friggin' movie. And in here, he's just basically trying to get vengeance. And some of the best tales to me, revenge ones, if they're done right. And this one's done right too. It's got sharks which weren't with freaking laser beams or anything stupid. You know what I mean? It's
by the way, it's a shark. There's only one shark.
Yeah, well, it's just
it eats Leitner's leg and his arm, according to what they said in the hospital. He's missing his leg and his arm. We think we could save the arm. He's missing his leg. That kind of thing. It's a little RoboCop thing.
Well, look, the bad guy, Roberto Davi, he was just Mr. Sanchez, as he would call him. I like that.
Oh, he's awesome.
He is. He really isn't. He's as big as he needs to be, and it feels that way. And the way he keeps his woman on lockdown, oh my God, she's just like so. But she did a good job, I think, portraying the fear of what this guy is. But then there's that also part where he takes kind of like Bond under his wing with the whole, Latin, kind of buddy thing. And like, this is pretty interesting. We don't need all this other crap. But yeah, I liked it. It's a very good film, actually. I'm looking at this, and we haven't talked about our rankings yet, but it'll be a quick one or two for these two. But man, this one it's underappreciated. Both of them are, I think.
Well, one of the things I do like about this film is it does go to what you always say. You want the Bond without the gadgets. And in all honesty, I've been watching them. There's not a lot of gadgets in these movies. I mean, there's some ridiculousness or occasionally here or there. It does get ridiculous, and the world is not enough, but Die Another Day with a Car. We're going to talk about that. But overall, there really hasn't been a lot of that. But this is where Dalton is stripped down because MI6 fire. He basically gets fired. It's one of those things. You're off the case. I'm going on it alone. It's one of those things where it's like a buddy cop movie, and he's going to solve it anyway. But then, of course, MI6 comes around and sends Q, and we get to see Q in the field for a little bit. So this is really a spy movie again, and that's one of the things that makes it worth it. Now, you brought up Talisa Soto. She is Katana. If anybody saw Mortal Kombat, she's Katana, and she's gorgeous, but she's wooden. I'm sorry, that was part of my problem with her. She's never been the best of actresses.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, she's really pretty to look at, and she's got these wide eyes and everything, but oh my gosh, she just isn't good.
Yeah, I'll agree with Venkman. He's saying basically that the plane scene with the Bond girl, with the cargo net, that's what I was talking about. That was
Yeah.
fantastic, which it ended well, that's what I was referring
Mhm.
to. But I want to comment on this because he brings it up and he's talking about, yeah, young Benicio del Toro's in here, but it doesn't really mean
I was
anything.
about to bring him. No, I actually think he was pretty good in it.
Well, I'm
Um,
saying, but he was young. I didn't know who he was at the time, but that brings me to
yeah,
the point that Venkman says in there about Wayne freaking Newton as this false TV preacher. I get it, but
he
I
was
kind of knew
so
who he was.
wasted.
But you might have known about Wayne Newton at the time. I kind of really didn't. So I'm like, yeah, this
Oh,
guy's
okay.
kind of weird. What's the deal with Wayne Newton? Which I didn't get till a couple
Oh,
years
okay,
later.
I see. Yeah, but that's one thing. He got better chances to be better villains in Adventures of Ford Fairlane.
Yeah, that's what I knew.
Yeah, he's the villain in that one. He did get a better chance to play better villains. And yes, Eric Breen, if you ever get a chance to see Vampirella, it is the absolute worst superhero film ever made or comic book movie ever made, and it's awesome. Benicio del Toro does a good job as a henchman here. I think there is one bit at the end where the fight choreography is so bad. And remember, I did say that there's not a lot of good there. I'm going to change there's no good to there's not a lot of good fights because they're starting to get better. Obviously, with Timothy Dalton, they said, you know what, we need to hire actors who could move and who can fight and who can look like they could do the things that James Bond are supposed to do. And the fights here look fine except for this one bit where Benicio is lunging at him with a knife, and it is so choreographed.
Yeah,
It's like, yeah, who are you trying to stab? Because it didn't fit. Um, of course, he goes out a stupid villain death, and that's why I'm God, if they let Dalton have a couple more Bond movies, because he was finding his stride. He wasn't there yet. And I think they were starting to realize they needed to write a movie to Dalton rather than put him in a Roger Moore regular James Bond script that they've been writing for the last 20 years. Times are changing, and it's time to, and I think this is the first movie where we're really seeing that James Bond has to change with them. And that might be why we had such a space between this one and GoldenEye.
well, there were definitely some legal issues going on that we'll talk more about in the next week or so with the other films. And
Okay.
for me, even though Dalton was, I think, a great Bond, actually, I think that some issues came up and he wasn't able to do a third and fourth because of all this legal stuff. Um, that being said, when I said progressive earlier, you just kind of said it in your own way there, where, having to write a film for him and write around him as opposed to rewriting the one that they've been writing. Well, flash forward next 10 films, they really haven't done that. They've actually done, I think, the opposite, just kept the template, and that's what's made films generally worse. Because one thing I noticed with this Bond is, man, when you really stare at these ladies, they don't just kind of jump out at you as being beautiful, but they're the type when your gaze lingers on them, you realize, man, these women are smoking hot. And you know what?
Oh, you mean like Calissa Soto? Have you
Well,
seen a
the point I'm making is
Okay,
that
go ahead.
how much tail is he getting in these two films?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. He's not exactly like Roger Moore.
And look, let's be honest. To me, the Dalton's good-looking man, and frankly, whether you thought he is or he isn't, he's James Bond. You're three woman a movie rule. I don't know if it holds up for these two.
No, actually it falls by the wayside as we continue.
I mean, it was obvious. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not saying it's good or it's bad. I don't know if it was the AIDS thing, but I started to feel a little sensitivity where I'm going, okay, here's an actor that's really trying to make Bond as original and as close to the books as possible and more like a spy movie. His movies are getting better. Unfortunately, there's a delay before going on to the next films. He's not in it anymore, so we basically have to reboot yet again. And this is when I just started getting frustrated with the franchise as a whole, too. So that
Well,
is going to bring. Well, do you want to rank these two before going on the others? How do you want to do
no,
this?
no, we'll do them as the we'll do them as the six, I think. Although, because as far as Dalton is concerned, I think we both agree. Um, or I don't know, maybe you don't, but
License to
definitely,
Kill is the best, and Living Daylights is number two.
yeah, that's the second one's first and the first one's second. Yes,
Correct, sir.
I get them mixed up. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah. So I figure as far as our ranking, we could just wait until the Wait until the end.
Roger that.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got a 6-week or 6-year delay before the next one comes out, GoldenEye, and
You start, because yeah, I know you have shots that you want to fire.
yeah, and it's just going to start here where I'm a little frustrated because I remember you being the big Remington Steele fan. My brother was, and one time I asked him, I said, "Hey, bro, why are you such a big Remington Steele fan?" And he really couldn't answer me. And then so he said something stupid along the lines of, "Well, yeah, you like the Equalizer." I'm like, "Yeah, well, but Robert McCall is cool, and they got Q, and they got Control, and he's got the little ad in the paper." I'm like, I popped for that, just like I like T.J. Hooker. I like cop stuff. I just watched nothing but cop stuff in the '80s. I tried to watch Remington Steele once, and I get it was probably more lighthearted and a comedy because that's at least what I remember of it, which is not much. And Pierce looked younger. I think he's a good-looking man as he's gotten older. I think he fits more into Bond older than younger. But with Pierce, I just looked at him and said, okay, I guess he got it because he did Remington Steele. Let's see how the movie is. And we get GoldenEye. So for GoldenEye, I will tell you that I will give it a pass based off of the attempt of CGI being introduced for what they were doing. I will give it a pass based on.
Wait, where is CGI?
Oh, anything having to do with the fighter jets and the bombing of the Siberian hidden place and all that too, where they actually have the GoldenEye device. It looks very dated to me. If you had cleaned the actual screen of the 67-inch, obscenely expensive Bondovision TV set we have, you would notice this as well.
Well, I saw this today, and I didn't notice any bad CGI.
It looked bad to me.
Okay.
Plus some of the characters, because this is when the internet actually was starting to hit critical mass, and you would have like graphical pictures and avatars yourself, which are dated by today's standards. I'm giving all that a pass. Okay, those things happen, right? I will say that there's parts of this movie. The movie looks really good. Most of the scenes.
It's a beautiful film.
It's beautiful. It's getting really dumb. Pierce Brosnan, to me, I'm just going to go out and say it. My problem with Pierce is he looks like he's bored and he's not into it in all of these films. Like he's not even him. He's not even pulling the Shatner. He's not. You can hold balls.
I disagree with you on that. I absolutely disagree with you on that. I think he does a really good job. I think he has a look of concentration on his face. Now I might agree with you.
Slapped or
I might agree with you about Die Another Day, but I don't think anybody wanted to be there. But as far as GoldenEye is concerned, right from the very beginning, I'm sorry, that opening shot, it was a good opening jump, scene. The bungee jump down the thing. Awesome. The whole bit with Sean Bean and him and the entire opening scene all the way to the point where he dives after the airplane.
Except for him moving like a ninja through about 40 AC vents. I found that annoying. Because he's trying to annoy ninja.
You're thinking of the video game. He doesn't go he doesn't go through 40 air vents.
He goes through several, and he jumps down on the guy on the can.
He goes through one, and he lowers himself. One AC vent. You are thinking of the video game. You're not thinking of the movie. One air vent. I'm literally watching it right now, dude. One.
Right. You don't hear anything. He comes down on something, moves the guy's paper, and he punches him. He says something stupid and punches it, and he just moves to the place like he's God. This is where it was just getting a little silly. And I'll agree with you. Some of the stunts were spectacular. There was just some really stupid stuff in there, like okay, maybe at this time the Sean Bean thing, turning on him or whatever like that. You're not aware of.
This is actually, and I see some
all the barrels coming down on him. That's just stupid. The barrels
didn't come down on him. He shot the barrels. He shot the barrels to go on to the Russian soldiers. Right. The whole point of it was that they were filled with fuel and they couldn't shoot at them, and that was the whole point. That was the way he used to get away.
It just seems silly the way they were stored and how convenient it was, as opposed to us going, "Oh, I see what he's trying to do." It was okay. This is cute, and that's probably.
But it wasn't convenient. They were literally in that room because that was the best way to blow up the base.
I understand. That's what I'm saying. I'm struggling early on with this because him running out, the whole jumping down stuff, this over the top thing, that's cool.
Yeah.
But you've got what, 400 people standing there shooting guns at him. They can't hit him once.
No, they can't shoot at him because if they let out the fuel, that's why they don't shoot. The one guy who does shoot at him,
the place when he's actually running towards the plane.
I don't think they make it that they don't get that close to him when he's running to the plane, because he gets on a motorcycle and he's riding away, and that's how he gets there. He's not running away. By the time that the other soldiers get out, he's already on a motorbike, and this is one that I've seen 100 times. This is my, usually it's at the top of my James Bond list. I can watch this anytime. This is an amazing film to me.
It was very popular. I can't dispute
that. The opening scene is incredible. I love I'm going to move past the opening scene here because it just get on to other things as well. Hold on just a second though. What else? I have to say Brosnan was sort of cheesy like Dalton. Actually, I think that Pierce Brosnan was a combination of Roger Moore and Sean Connery. That's one of the reasons I liked him as James Bond. He kind of wrapped up the two into one, because he was dangerous and he's physical the way Sean Connery was, but he was also the charming womanizer with the one-liners the way that Roger Moore was. So I really do think he's a kind of a culmination of the two. Yeah.
To me, he's like when you put the two together, and like you're saying, he's a culmination. You put the two together and you get less than 50% of each, because
I disagree. I absolutely disagree with you on that.
But he's scrawny. He just comes across as a pussy.
No freaking way. You did not watch the same movies I did, because this is not a guy who's coming off like a pussy. He's kicking all sorts of ass, and that's one of the good things about getting an actor like him, because he can actually do the fight scenes. Unlike sped up editing Sean Connery and green screen Roger Moore. And if you want to put him against Timothy Dalton, I think that Timothy Dalton's Bond would kick Pierce Brosnan Bond's ass, because Timothy Dalton, if you write, and I mean and I'm talking about the third Dalton movie that we should have gotten, or the fourth one, those guys would wipe the floor with him, because Timothy Dalton's Bond should have been written like the Craig Bond, just as badass. The scene, we're going to get to Craig next week, but one of the scenes that set Craig's Bond up is when he's saying, "You want it shaken or stirred? Do I look like I give a shit?" That was an excellent, and that was an excellent line for him, and that's exactly how Dalton's Bond would be. So yeah, I do agree that between the two, definitely Dalton's Bond wins up against Pierce Brosnan's, but no, Pierce Brosnan is no way, shape, or form. His Bond is not a pussy.
He's a bedwetting liberal.
That would be Roger Moore. Roger Moore's Bond definitely in pussyhood, because if it's not in front of a green screen, he ain't doing it.
Here's the problem with Pierce, and this takes away from the masculinity aspect that I brought up, that you believe all those other Bonds at least could sort of handle themselves. Moore, not so much, even though he tried. The fact is, and I will say this about him, Roger Moore dressed very well. So, I mean, most of the Bonds do. You can talk about flashing stuff, but this movie really went over the top with, although I think Moonraker is probably the worst in terms of product placement. But I will say this about Pierce. There's a scene where he gets to the place and he's talking with the female M in the office. And I think that's a good exchange there. I like that when he's just acting there. When he's just doing that stuff, when he's just wearing a suit, not having to do anything, he's very good looking. I'm like, man, I'm watching his suit more than I am him. As a matter of fact, I'm watching all the pretty stuff that's out there on her desk going, man, these people are civil servants, even though they're specialists. They're making tons of money. The movie is getting a bit too sexy, a bit too flashy. And I hate to say that, because I love me some sexy, but when it comes to a spy film, I can't stand 400 Ruskies out there trying to shoot him on a motorbike. Nothing happens to me.
They're not trying to shoot him because they don't catch up to him. The scene is literally on my television right now. They're not.
The general theme I'm making is they immediately went from what they had to greater, just total implausibility.
Okay, so you don't like the fact that they thought bigger was better.
Agreed. And Pierce is not for that. That's not, I think, his strong suit. No pun intended.
I want to bring this up and say that I absolutely freaking love the opening credit scene.
It's
This is this is one of the best. Basically, of course, we're only what 6-7 years away. You got to figure by the time this was made, we're only like 5 or 6 years away from the Berlin Wall falling, and all of this is just basically Russia imageries, just the images of all their icons falling. And of course, you've got your normal spy half-naked chicks dancing all over it, which, you know, hey, you know, way to show respect. But I love this opening scene. And Goldeneye by Tina Turner is an incredible song.
Now, I got to backpedal because I was getting excited because I agreed with you that it was a very incredible opening, you know, song there, scene, and all that too. I agree totally. Those things, those are some of the things I like about them when they can tie certain things in. To me, the opening gambit doesn't necessarily have to, you know, match up. But I think they went over the top because you got a new one. I will say this: I absolutely do not like the song by Tina Turner. I like the opening part to it. I just
okay. No, that's happened to me a couple of times where it's like the song is good or the credit scene is bad, or the credit scene is good and the song is bad. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. That can happen. Yeah, I'm not Tina Turner. I'm not taking any offense. You don't like a song I like, because there's a lot of music you and I are different on. Pierce seemed annoyed most of the time.
He did. He seemed like he was almost just going through the motions just to do it. I mean, I really see that, at least, and you know, it's the first film, so I was going, you know what, I didn't expect it to be as good as maybe the others' first films. And Live and Let Die, you know, no great movie. It's fun and all that too, but I guess maybe that's one thing I'm talking about. I'm watching this movie, and I think they're so hard on trying to be progressive and trying to force Pierce on us rather than just let it germinate. It just came across as just not working to me. I don't know if it was the long layoff. I don't know if it's because I was older, but I just Goldeneye, while I don't think it's a bad film, I'm not entertained by it, and it annoys me. And I can't. This is the first time with a Bond movie, for the most part, except for, you know, I Rag on Diamonds are forever annoying me. It annoys me, but it didn't really piss me off. This movie, I left the theater going, I just didn't know if I liked it. I'm like, is it just me? And I just didn't really watch it for a while, honestly, because
I'm also wondering if Contrarian didn't pop in, because when this came out, I was not the only splooger. and I know,
you're correct.
And I know you absolutely hate the hype. You go into hyped movies already wanting to shoot the screen.
Yes.
So
it triggers me.
This definitely couldn't have helped you. So anyway, this is my Bond right here. So I'm going to be talking about this movie. I want to bring up pieces and parts. Obviously, if you want to destroy it or whatever, maybe there's going to be something that you're going to find that you like this in this one. We didn't just get a new Bond. We got a new M.
Correct.
And that's in Dame Judi Dench, not a dame at the time.
She was solid.
I'm telling you, man. I liked original M, but she sold it. She
had more balls in that scene that I mentioned with him in the office while they're talking over stuff, and she's pouring him a drink and talking about, you know, sending him out to die. If you think I don't have the balls to send you off to die, well, you're mistaken. But then she says, "Bond, don't kill yourself."
Do it on. She says,
she displayed more balls there than Pierce did in any of these.
I'm not going to do it on a whim.
Right.
And one of the things I also liked is, you know, he's like, well, your predecessor kept cognac. I like bourbon.
Yeah, that was good.
And she really did establish herself in 2 scenes. And that's one. I mean, she's an excellent actress. That's why she got her Oscar for a role that she was in a movie for less than 24 seconds in. You know, she's an incredible actress, and definitely here she staked her claim on the role. And in all honesty, I was so sad to see her go in Skyfall. So thankfully, though, Ralph Fiennes is a good actor too, so hopefully he carries the role. But yeah, definitely had to bring her up. The next one is, we talk a little bit about Bond girls, and here we get 2. You get, of course, the young lady who follows him around, and then you get the one interest. Well, I'm not counting the young lady in the car, the one that's the psychological evaluation. But
that was so dopey.
Isabella Scorupco as Natalia. She's the one that carried around, but nobody ever remembers her, and she's the main girl. But we have to talk about Famke Jensen.
Awful. What's her name? On the top?
On the top.
That's so she's laying down while she crushes the guy. I noticed that going, I don't get it. Why don't you be consistent?
Xenia on the top.
Yeah.
No, she was on that. That's the whole thing. She would get on top, and then she would wrap the legs around, and she would crush them with the thighs, and strangle them or kill them while she was strangling them.
But if you look at the scene on the boat with, I think the first time she does it, where she's, having the orgasm doing it. I mean, that was kind of neat. A chick who gets off violence. I like that for the character. And it's one of the last.
Yeah, because it wasn't just that. You're right. But when they go into the GoldenEye facility and she starts shooting all the programmers and everything, she's like,
that would have been great 10 or 20 years ago. It just it falls so flat.
It was 20 years ago.
No, at the time. I mean, like in the 70s.
The fact that the Russian general kind of looks over like, what the fuck? And that was really cool. I like that. But yeah, I actually agree. On the top is over the top a little bit on this one, but she is always. But I think she's always like that. You either like it or you'd like her or you don't. Except for me, I'm kind of in the middle on the whole thing. And no, I'm looking right at her. She's on top when she kills the old man at the beginning too.
Okay.
I've got the video evidence right in front of me. Yeah. I like Boris as well. The Alan Cummings character. I am invincible. He's awesome.
No,
you are
a turd burglar.
You are just, well, that may be true, but he was still awesome.
Yes, and he wasn't awesome.
Yes. I'm not saying Famke looked ugly in GoldenEye. Gosh, both of y'all are.
She's a pale face. If you look at her, she looks older than she did in Hemlock Grove, another Netflix series that we under consideration for review at some potential future date.
15 years later,
right? But she looks worse. It's the makeup job they do on her.
Now I can say she's pale face, but she's a Russian. They're not rushing out to go out to the beach or anything like that.
I don't know how to explain it because she's got that cold type of skin tone, which she's not naturally dark with her features, obviously. But no, the way the light hits her in this film, I don't know if that's the look they were going for. But yeah, it's like, okay.
All righty. And something we also have to talk about because we said we would. And that is Jack Wade, played by Mr. Joe Don Baker. He fits here.
No.
He does.
You're right. Better in this. Better in here than he did in the other one.
Because he was playing what, like a South American dictator in the in License to Kill. Here he's the American. He's supposed to be loud. He's supposed to be brash. He is what the English think we are. And that's his whole point. And I kind of wonder, he cannot be an undercover agent. He's got to be the guy who sets stuff up in America for or in other countries for people, because there's no way Joe Don Baker is undercover anything. First of all, he's 8 feet freaking tall. He stands out like a sore thumb. And of course, I don't see that accent doing any kind of Russian accent. So yeah, he's got to be the guy who sets everything up. But that's exactly who he is. He's supposed to be the loud, brash American guy. That's what they even mentioned a couple of times. And I got to admit, this is something I do like about the Brosnan Bonds, is they do take their shots in America, like, oh, well, I wonder if they're going to be more mad that they lost this or that we found it, that kind of thing. But yeah, I like the Joe Don Baker character.
Yeah, an upgrade. I don't know how he made it in like 2 of them like that. I just don't know. Because some
kind of like
it, but that's fine.
Yeah, kind of like what's his name, who went from a dead CIA agent to Blofeld.
Yep.
Which would have made sense since we've discovered they were doing masks and everything. That, oh, okay, well, Blofeld, why are you wearing the face of my dead friend? If they mentioned that in the past, that would have been cool. Joe reminds me of annoying American sheriff in Roger Moore's movie, Sheriff P. Warhol or something like that. I don't know what his name. No, that's Ernest
J. Peppers or something.
Yeah. Sheriff J. Peppers. That was it. Yeah. I gotta say, this movie, man, the tank scene, all of the action sequences are dead on. They're just spot on. I love this film, top to bottom. This is, and I understand you don't. That's awesome. That's part of the fun of having these discussions, or when we disagree with it. Sean Bean, excellent villain. And
I
this is
like
actually,
Sean Bean, but he puts
yeah,
me to sleep.
okay.
The way he
This
talks.
is, I actually get that. He doesn't put me to sleep, but I actually can understand that. Yes, James, we got to do this. And it never really rises above this level. It's almost like ASMR when he talks. Maybe that's why everybody wants to kill him, because they're either going to fall asleep for life or he has to shut up. But overall, this is one of the most exciting Bonds as well, which also does speak to why you don't like these, because from here on in, Bond becomes action films.
I
Almost
should
more
be
than
drinking now because the pain I'm just starting to feel with the couple more films we've got to review. It's tough. I will say this: of the 4 that we've covered so far, the 4 different Bonds and their 4 first films, this one is by far the worst.
This one's the best. Yeah.
Well, let's move on, shall we?
Okay.
Shall we?
Yeah. Knowing about Daniel Craig's Casino Royale. And then you've got Daniel Craig, Casino Royale, Dr. No, License to Kill, and Live and Let Die. We're not going to count on Her Majesty's Secret Service. That's one film.
I might argue
But,
that later.
okay. No, put it in there. But what is the best and what is the worst?
Casino's probably up there. I have to think long and hard about On Her Majesty's Secret Service as being better, though. But we haven't discussed that yet, honestly.
Okay. We'll save this for another day then.
Yeah.
We're going to table this particular
But
conversation.
again, this one is just by far the worst. I mean,
not at all.
Yeah.
This is the best. Of the ones we've already reviewed, it would go this one, Live and Let Die, Dr. No, and then License to Kill.
I would put it on if I was organizing my sock drawer. I like roll my socks sometimes like a tie, but my ties I like to hang. But yeah, and here's the thing. It's really probably not that bad of a film. The problem I have is it's just I don't know what kind of film it's trying to be, and I don't know what the hell he's trying to do, because I get all this whining from some people, and it really kind of starts with Brosnan's about how difficult it is to be Bond and how it typecasts you. And I'm like, you know what? I understand it and I get it. Nobody who is going to the film cares about how hard you think it is to make 10, 20, 50 million dollars, a film with Bond and backends and all that stuff and be typecast. I don't want to hear it. You get to wear all the custom tailored stuff and this and that. You're really not working that hard. And that's the problem I have with some of these films, is this, that as we go into Tomorrow Never Dies, it gets bigger and worse. And not in a bad way like Moonraker might be considered by some. So Tomorrow Never Dies. That's
Tomorrow Never Dies.
I thought the song was a bit better. It's a little laid back, which you can have that. It's Sheryl Crow, if I recall.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
I thought nothing could be worse than GoldenEye, and fortunately, at least for now, that's true, because this one was a step above. It was a step above because it had Terry Hatcher in it, and at some point where she's talking with Bond, and Bond's being kind of smooth with her in a party, I believe, and that's where we see the bad guy talking about his scheme to blah, 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 blah. I fell asleep. And then I watched it a year later, and I got about a minute past that when I heard his name's Elliot Carver, and I fell asleep. And then I watched it again for this, like the other night, and it's the scene where he starts to introduce himself to Bond, and I fell asleep.
Really?
I thought this movie, it doesn't upset me like GoldenEye does. It just puts me to sleep. Get Michelle Yeoh, who's a beautiful woman. Don't understand why she was in it, other than, hey, let's put her in there. We're trying to be progressive. You got Terry Hatcher, who's just gorgeous, and I just wanted to watch her because she's so gorgeous. I mean, she's like probably almost peak Terry Hatcher at this point.
It's before she became skinny Terry Hatcher. This is when she's still voluptuous.
Tango and Cash is probably but she has not dropped off of it.
Yeah. That's why I like her in this one. It's because she is far more voluptuous, a body and
elegant almost.
Yeah. I'll talk about what you brought up, and then I want to back up to the opening scene and everything. But what you're talking about, that I watched that literally today.
Okay.
So when the scene comes in where Terry Hatcher is in his hotel room, they have their discussion. I realized this could possibly be the very first sex scene that James Bond had that had emotion behind it.
Disagree.
That had real emotion. The whole scene was played for romance. Which one matched the Terry Hatcher scene for romance, for passion? I'm not talking about, oh well, hey, I'm here and you're here, therefore let's, what was it that can match this
It's
one?
the movie we haven't talked about on Her Majesty's Secret Service, so it's probably not fair to really
Okay.
continue this at this point.
Okay, so far, maybe
So far, maybe I could agree with you on that.
yeah, this was quite impressive as far as that's concerned. They really did make a connection,
And he had to
which
be
is
loved.
good.
He's got no balls. He can't just like
Which is good because no, he does that too. But this is good because James Bond is out for revenge as much as wanting to get the mission done through this, and it's mainly because of the death of Terry Hatcher's character Paris Carver, and I think that's really good. So they really do well with only about 5 or 6 minutes worth of screen time to build up this relationship between James Bond and Paris Carver, and I like that. I do agree that that is a really good scene. I also like the opening where he's on a mission. You're seeing through lens, and we're basically getting the story as M is watching it, and they're talking to him. You don't hear what James Bond is saying, and he's, okay, here's a terrorist, and there's a order from on high, just bomb the shit out of it and let's kill all the terrorists at once. And it turns out that there's a couple of nuclear bombs on a plane. So then he has to jump in the plane and fly away. I thought that was done very well. As a matter of fact, for the most part, the Pierce Brosnan Bonds all have excellent opening scenes. But
I might have to agree with you on that, especially just with what we've been talking about. The one thing I will say that you're mentioning, I think is a very good point, is going back to GoldenEye. GoldenEye obviously got huge on the Nintendo. I think it was the Nintendo 64, because you could do that split screen. It was super popular for so long. You're getting to where online is a factor now. I think that's why they showed some of it in there, and that's why I said I would give the type of silly Alan Cummings stuff there past the avatars and the CGI, because you got to introduce it. So I get it. And then here, you're right, the opening sequence there too, you're starting to get some of the stuff where the military is all about the real-time information. And, to me, I like how they're upgrading the stuff that's currently in the world and what they're trying to do, even if they're age-old plots trying to get two people to fight against each other. Like, in a lot of Bond movies, you kind of pretty much have that template. So I don't really even care that they're kind of doing the same template, and it's definitely a little better. But it just, I don't know how to explain. I can't tell you why it puts me to sleep. I just cannot tell you. I just can't tell you.
I can't understand it.
It's just,
there are things I liked better. I don't know if I would say I like the movie better, but there were things in this movie I liked better than I did in GoldenEye this time around. I kind of like that there's nobody trying to rule the world or destroy the world. This guy just wants to build his empire. And I don't know, I kind of dug that. I like the personal touch as far as the villain is concerned.
I think it's him though. I think that's why I don't like it, because he just, every time he came on the screen, I'm going, you're not a Bond villain. You're some chode in the corner office that I'm like, oh, shut up. We're going to go do our bracket now. Go to hell. You know what I mean?
Yeah, not a Jonathan Pryce fan, or is it just the character himself?
I guess it's him and or the character. I mean, maybe if it was played by somebody else, it wasn't believable. It was like, yawn, here's a guy talking about blah, 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 blah. It was just, I wasn't feeling it. That's the problem.
A media mogul controlling the information that's sent out to the world is kind of timely right now.
I'm talking about the way it's done, and through him. Okay. No.
The opening credits also I have to bring up is this is the first time we're really seeing CGI used in them.
Yeah.
This is, or at least where it's obvious, because this is the whole digital thing. One thing I noticed though is because they're using that, the women have to wear greens, basically the green suits. So instead of the naked chick running around with a gun that you would normally get, you can actually see the folds in the suits and everything like that. And I was like, I don't know how I feel like that. How I feel about that. Not a big fan. I'm going through this as we talk, and I'm trying to see conversation points. Because something I'm going to be talking about because it's me.
Just go ahead.
Michelle Yeoh is incredible in this film. Now, I'm a fan of. Say again.
Why is she in this film?
Because England and Britain are put to war. She is basically the female James Bond. Why don't we have another country when it's two countries put together? I mean, we did actually in Spy Who Loved Me, where you had the Russian that was teamed up. It's basically the same thing.
She is a better actor than her.
Oh, bullshit. No, dude, you take that fucking shit back. No, you can say things about all you want.
Is better than the.
Okay. We're friends again. Well, I'm a fan of Michelle Yeoh. I discovered her through Super Cop when it came to America. I don't know if you remember. I was working at the Cinemark at that point, and I was like, holy shit, I want to find out about, I'm cussing a lot. I apologize, but I want to find out about this woman. She is incredible. And she is huge in China at this point. And she's even got a superhero called Silverhawk. So I was all into it when I heard she was in Bond. I'm like, oh, okay. I was almost predisposed to loving this because she's in it.
Yeah.
So I have to be honest about that. I like every scene she's on. The movie peaks when she's on screen to me.
That's not a good thing, though.
I'm not saying this is as good as GoldenEye in my opinion, but I did enjoy it. Here's something else I want to bring up, and it's not Michelle Yeoh. We'll get back to that. There's a character in the middle of the film, about the 56 minute moment. Pierce Brosnan goes back to his hotel, and he is he's greeted by Terry Hatcher is dead, and there's a guy who walks in. And I don't know if you remember, but from Fast Times at Ridgemont High, he's the teacher who just finished decaf. That guy, he plays the doctor. And I can shoot you from a mile away and make it look like, it's such a great character. I hate the fact that they killed him. I would love this guy to have been a recurring character. He was just so entertaining, so enjoyable to me. But yeah, I thoroughly liked it. I'm passing by, so I had to bring it up. And then we get to something that you and I don't like. And I'm just going to go off.
You just go. You're spooging now. I can
yes,
see it.
Yes, I am. Here's something I didn't like. I don't like that goddamn remote control pad for a car. If you're going to do a remote control, you don't make it a pad that you slide your finger across. How do you know which way you're going? How far to go? Okay, joysticks would have been fine. But that god dang, I'm sitting in the back seat. The car chase is exciting. Okay, and yeah, it's a little funny that he jumps the thing out into the Avis rent-a-car across the street. But it's the whole pad thing. When joysticks would have been so obvious. And at the time, you had a god dang Nintendo 3DS, so you had the setup. You know how to do it. It's just, that whole remote control pad thing just bothered me. And it ruined what otherwise was an exciting car chase.
That doesn't even count to me.
Doesn't even count.
That's how bad it is.
That's all. Yeah. Well,
and it gets worse. That's the problem.
We have tonight. I can't. No. Oh, yeah. That's not the worst car that we have to talk about. No, we will talk about other things. What's it? Car versus not packing heat. Oh, okay, that's you.
Well, he's asking why he should marry him, and that's my whole point. It's. Look, you can argue older man, younger woman. He's got money. No, what I'm saying in real life, we know all these reasons why.
Yeah.
The point I think he's trying to make, or at least the way I'm interpreting it, is much like the stupid car thing you just mentioned, and him being a snoozer and me calling him a pussy, is that just the way all these elements are together, they're just not working. It's just not feeling like a Bond
See,
film. It just feels like they're trying to just be big, and it's just a franchise that's interchangeable. My suspension of disbelief is just not there because they try to do it this way, then they do this, and it's just I'm just not feeling it at all. It's like if I want to watch an action movie like that, I'd rather watch something else. It can't be that over the top. I mean,
okay.
it just
Well, that's how I
uh,
feel about the car thing. See, because you bring up gadgets, but gadgets are not the problem. The car is the freaking problem.
it's a gadget.
And yeah, well, I'm talking. I always kind of figure the cars and gadgets are separate. The gadgets are what he holds or
Driving
uses.
a motorcycle
You
like
know.
Pierce did a few times, I don't
Yeah.
consider that a gadget. But when you've got buttons and flippity things and
Oh, okay.
blinking
I see
stuff,
where I see how you're defining it. But
yeah,
okay. Speaking of the motorcycle scene, I loved it. I love the chase through Vietnam on the motorcycle. That is, in my opinion, the highlight of the film, and it's incredible. I also like the ending, but the thing with the helicopter going through the town, this with the blades down, the whole 9 yards. It is just so exciting. It's very well choreographed, very well shot. Has a great ending, of course, where they slide under and they bring the helicopter down. Which I'm thinking, you know what? You just burned down that entire Vietnamese village. Those things are freaking tinder boxes. Let's not pretend you guys are like 6 feet away, but because that's what happens. First of all, they jump over it, which is awesome, and then they go under it and they wrap it around it. It blows up, and then we get the most awesome scene in any movie ever.
what?
Michelle Yeoh in a white t-shirt, wet under under a shower. I'm like, holy shit, yeah, that's awesome. But yeah, it's an entertaining film to me. It's not as good as Goldeneye. I liked it when I saw it today. I liked that they gave Michelle Yeoh her own little karate sequence when people are attacking her base. The ending, to me, you mentioned the third act always falters. It didn't fail, but it's very generic
Yeah,
to me.
like
It's a
everything else
very
we've seen
generic
now for
ending.
2 full films.
I disagree with that, but uh so okay, I splooged enough about this film. I've splooged enough about the other one.
I'm not going
The
to splooge, but I'll have a
you have
chuppy going into the next film.
you have nothing to say about Tomorrow Never Dies other than you fell asleep.
The title probably should have been Pierce Brosnan Never Dies because at this point I was crying so bad because they had killed the Bond franchise.
You are so wrong. So obviously it's a pass from me, but not from you. So this leads us into his third film. So
Yes,
why don't you start us off, since it's the only one I think that you're going to give a good grade to tonight?
The World Is Not Enough was a film that I went into probably under the influence of something, just simply because I knew the pain I was going to be in. And at this point, I'm on autopilot. If a Bond movie comes out, I'm seeing it probably on opening day in the theater. It's one of the few films that I actually it's like nature. It's my DNA. I haven't divested myself of that yet, although it's very close. And I've accepted that I just really had to lower my standards for what to expect out of a Pierce Brosnan movie. Just, the ludicrousness of his stuff that's not even believable. It's not funny. Didn't have the charm of Roger Moore at all. Like I say, he's just a pansy ass. But World Is Not Enough surprised me. And it surprised me in a couple ways. It's kind of like the opposite of the opening theme in that I actually really love the song. I think it's a fantastic song, especially if you see him play it live. The chicks in the oil and stuff. Oh, okay, I get it. It's with it. But the opening gambit was perfect for him. And I agreed with what you said earlier about him. He does have good opening sequences. And I think maybe they finally got something right with Pierce because, they have to cover up how bad the body of work is during the rest of the film. But this sequence is just over the top enough where I absolutely love it. Starting off in Bilbao, Spain, he's got the hidden assets thing that I tweeted out earlier. That to me was a scene that had a little bit of creativity in it. He's got that dumb little look where they zoomed in on him where he's kind of scowling after he pops the guy and he disarms him, and then he's chasing the lady after he's lassos down the building. The whole opening thing was great. It got a little over crazy stupid with the underwater thing that it was chasing it and all that, but finishing up high top with the helicopter and then falling down, great. Loved it. Entertained. I was surprised. The movie.
Okay,
Go ahead.
can I speak on the opening scene and we can
Yes.
move on a little bit? Okay. I am going to disagree a little bit about what you said. There's, in my opinion, not a bad part of this action film, or of this action sequence. And even him going underwater was
Well, he
just a
adjusts his
James
tie, which
Bond
was kind of like,
touch.
all right, okay, that's
Yeah,
cute.
yeah, that's why it made it a James Bond cheese moment, and that's why I liked it, because I was like, yep. Uh, it just there's maybe I put my own thought into it, but it's just like, well, par for the course. That's kind of what I got when he did that. This was par for the course, and that's how I always want to read the James Bond adjusting of the tie.
Yep.
Whatever he is, then whatever he's doing, that's exactly what he needs to be doing right now. It's just par for the course. That is where his life has led him to. I will say this about this opening scene. One thing I read, or what, no, I saw it on a documentary, that this scene was actually supposed to end with him rappelling down the building. It wasn't supposed to have the big ass boat chase. And it was like, oh my gosh, all right, that's really, really cool. This is one of the best action sequences of all time, any movie, hands down. And in the 150 years worth of cinema, this sequence tells a story from beginning to end, and it is an incredible action sequence. I love it to death.
Well, I didn't know you felt that way.
Oh, I love this.
You get
sequence.
me fired up a little bit.
It's this. That's what this freaking thing does. It drags you into the movie, and it absolutely 100% works. I love the opening sequences of the Pierce Brosnan Bonds, and as much as I love GoldenEye, as much as I love that as a film altogether, and that is, I will say this: GoldenEye is shot more beautiful. It's just prettier to look at. This one is visceral, and it'll take you from very, and not only that, but you get the whole character of James Bond from the time he steps in. He's doing his thing. I'm a banker, blah, 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 to the threat. I'm going to let you leave with your lives. The cockiness.
Yes.
Of when he catches.
For a change.
The cockiness when he does kill everybody and he does repel. His smugness when he's finished the mission and he's with M. And then we get the danger as he's trying to capture the people who blew up. It's absolutely all there. James Bond is present in that one opening scene. And then it leads into the oil ladies, which this is another problem with the I told you about the green screen suits. It's a fine opening credit scene. It's not my favorite. The song is good. But if you play now, I listened to this only 2 hours after I listened to Tomorrow Never Dies. Listen to them back to back, and they are almost the very same song. So I'm not as impressed by the song as I am by the opening sequence. And anyway, you can continue. Sorry.
No, I was just saying the opening sequence is fantastic. At this point, though, I'm hoping we have a movie. We kind of don't. It evolves into boredom to me. But to me, out of all of his films, I'm going to go ahead and say it. This is my most favorite of his, because the opening sequence is fantastic. His suit game is strong, and actually, when they're all together in the headquarters, and he corners Emerald like that, and he realizes that this is like a personal matter, you can see him. She yells at him. You can see he's getting ready to kind of, yell back or something. Not that he has the balls to do it, but he stomps and he goes, "What happened?" And I thought, you know what? A little nuance there, a little bit of delivery. I'm liking this. This is pretty good because she's fun. But God, again, this movie is so beautiful. I'm so distracted by how great everybody's suit is, their clothes. I'm dead serious. The problem, it kind of devolves into the spot fests where you've got the BMW, which they had like a 3-picture deal or something. That's why you had that stupid thing you were complaining about with the joysticks, and it shows up here. And it just takes away what I enjoyed about it. There's a cute scene where he's got the X-ray glasses and he's kind of having his martini at the bar, checking out the ladies, and everyone's got guns. And I thought that was kind of cute. I liked Reynard a lot as a bad guy, and he's got one of the greatest lines delivered where he's like, "Mr. Bond, welcome to my nuclear family," and the whole bullet to his eyes gets stronger until the day he's going to die. That's cool. Everything else just falls flat. Even, unfortunately, the very first time, in all the Bond films that we've seen that employ skiing, I wasn't impressed by the ski scene.
You know what you know how I feel about the skiing scenes. This one, I
I'll
can't.
take Beach Boys any day over what I saw in this one.
I was about to say it's better than the Beach Boys, but
No.
I can't back up any of the ski scenes. I'm not impressed. Well, it's better than surfing. We'll get to that. But so there's not a lot I could disagree with you on. I can not as far as like, oh wow, but you got this wrong. Like I can argue with you about Tomorrow Never Dies. I can argue with you about Goldeneye. But this one is such a personal story that if you don't get into the relationship between James Bond and Sophie Mercer, what was her character? Sophia Marceu's character. I forgot to look it up.
Electric King.
Electric King. Thank you very much. If you don't get into the relationship between the character, the movie is not going to work. It is so essential because basically what she does to Pierce Brosnan, what she does to James Bond, she did to Raynor, because Raynor was her kidnapper and she made Raynor fall in love. That's her superpower. And that she does the same thing to Pierce Brosnan, to James Bond. And if you can't buy that, if you're not invested, you're not going to like the movie. So I can't argue
about her because you know what? I kind of believed it, even though they introduced the whole Stockholm Syndrome potential early on, where she was very good at that. That's what made this film a whole level better, because not just really as a Bond girl, it was essential to the story as opposed to just being a piece of ass or the goofy one that follows you around or whatever. That really did make it good.
Now, here's something that I'm gonna mirror some words that you've said of other films. One of the strongest things about this movie is it is Pierce Brosnan's spy movie. This is the one where they took it back just a bit and they let him be a spy. They let him go places. They let him find out information. Goldeneye was very much an action film. Tomorrow Never Dies was absolutely an action film. This is his spy film. If as much as I like Goldeneye, this is the best Pierce Brosnan as James Bond. And I think that's because they do let him branch out and be the spy that James Bond is supposed to be. And this might actually be why the film resonates with you a little bit more than the other ones did. And I can understand that. You go to James Bond for a certain kind of movie. You can go to Arnold Schwarzenegger for your action. You don't want to go, you don't want him to play James Bond. You just want him to blow shit up. So yeah, Tomorrow Never Dies isn't going to resonate with you as much as The World Is Not Enough. Sophie Marceau, that was her name, right? Yeah, she did excellent as Electric King, I think. And she is really good at making you believe that guys can fall head over heels. This is Robert Carlyle's movie to lose, though. And he does it in just a few scenes, but every scene he's in, he owns. He is just amazing as Renard. One of the best, I guess he would be a henchman, because he's set up to be the villain, but we actually find out that he's not the villain. He's actually the henchman.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying with that. Yeah.
That literally just occurred to me, because throughout most of the film, as a matter of fact, you're led to believe that Renard is the villain and that Sophie Marceau had the, what's it called again? The Stockholm Syndrome? Yeah, but it actually turns out to be different. This time around, Denise Richards didn't bother me.
She never bothered me in it.
And she looks good in that dress. Yes. When she's at the when they're at the factory, the caviar factory. Damn, she looks good in that dress.
And I'll admit, as bad and cheesy it is, and how much I bust on Pierce being kind of a wimpy ass, I didn't mind at the end where he's sexing her up like that, and he talks about Christmas only coming once a year, but really more than that. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll buy that. It's like they tried to let him have a little goofy line or whatever. Yeah. Yeah. Too bad this is the peak of his films. We'll
get to that in just a second. I'm going to wrap up because I'm like going through this film here. I don't like the fact that they killed off Robbie Coltrane's character, because I like him as a recurring character. Valentin Dimitri.
Mm-hmm.
He was the boss. I dug that. However, of course, him shooting the thing to save, I thought that was fine. And I love the fact that Pierce Brosnan is James Bond has no hesitation to kill Electra Kane.
Yeah. Yeah.
But James, blam, right in the head. It's actually kind of a shock when it comes.
Well, it took him 3 films.
Yeah. You're like, hey, he finally became Bond. But in all honesty, Roger Moore's best film was 3 films in as well. And if you think about it, 3 films
Roger's first 2 films didn't suck.
Well, neither did Pierce Brosnan's.
Yeah.
But Sean Connery, his 3rd film was his best, Goldfinger. So, yeah, that just seems to be, maybe Roger Dalton would have had the same thing.
Timothy.
Yeah. Timothy, what I keep
saying Roger Dalton for some reason.
Because Roger Daltrey, obviously. God damn it. How many times have I said that tonight? Roger instead of Timothy Dalton?
I stopped at 3.
Gosh, sorry about that, gang. What's funny is that when I separate these into individual reviews, it's going to be it's going to just have me saying that over and over again.
No, it's a good film. It's a good Bond film. It's not just his best film. It's a solid Bond film out of compared to, it's very solid. It's very good. I liked it a lot. It might be slow in some stuff, and you may not like some scenes, but overall, it's pretty good. It's pretty good, but by far better than the first 2. But to me, just a solid movie. It made me go, oh God, maybe going to the next film it won't suck.
Yeah.
Let me start off Die Another Day.
Okay. Give me just a little bit. Oh, you go on ahead.
That is correct, sir. That's why I'm starting off.
Go on ahead.
Yeah, when Die Another Day came out, again, in the theaters, opening night, going to see it, I really hoped that it was going to be as good as The World's Not Enough. I knew better by this point. And actually, I started kind of popping because I like the opening scene. And
the opening scenes are awesome.
They're good. You're right. And I'm like, all right. And then I really I almost started growing a little bit of a chubby when I'm watching the credits there at the beginning, and they've got them like being tortured, and they got the scorpions and all that. I'm like, hey, this is kind of badass. I like this or whatever. And after that, I wish I could be forced to sit there and watch back-to-back screenings of GoldenEye and Tomorrow Never Dies, and even Diamonds Are Forever. I'll take Tomorrow Never Dies and 2 Diamonds Are Forever to trade in watching this film, because insulting, horrible. Everything I've said about Bond being a big franchise, which I know it is, and I know they make crap tons of money. It doesn't mean the quality is good, but it means it can be good. They have the resources for it. Anything they got right, they got wrong in this film, just from the obvious product placement to the fact that he's still limpy. I've told you that there's a huge difference between being pretty, being sexy, being cute. Sexual attraction doesn't necessarily mean any of that stuff. I've never, ever been a Halle Berry fan. I've personally, you may not know this, I've done some fencing, and obviously, movies, fencing and stuff's movie-fied or whatever. Madonna didn't offend me being in here, but she was in there just to be in there. Just like I said, Michelle Yeoh was just in there just to be in there because they wanted to, start getting some of that Chinese money and all that.
Lies. Anyway, continue.
Well, again, Bond being progressive, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to be ahead of the curve on all this stuff and put in all these things. And actually, maybe this is Bondgate we should be talking about instead of Comicsgate. Because only in the past couple of films have people actually started to wake up to the fact that Bond's really sucked for a long time, but nobody wants to admit it because, gosh darn it, it's James Bond. It can't be. If it were given the same equity and severity of thought that Comicsgate has, we'd have a lot to discuss, sir. Because this movie is just absolutely a disaster. It's by far the worst Pierce Brosnan movie, and I think probably one of the worst entirely. This movie's not watchable on any level. I've
put out 5 or 6 videos for this channel now. So I am challenging you, sir, to make a video on why James Bond has sucked for 20 years.
That would take a stream, and that would take so long. Because again, it goes into what we talk about. Do you want to see a spy movie? You want to see an action movie? Do you want to see little bits of both? How well are they doing it? You've got different guys. Are the movies into the personalities? The Bond template is just a template, and they're just plugging and chugging anything in. That's the problem at this point here, because okay, you got the big bad guy that's going to get two people to opposing sides to kind of get into something. The Bond's got to go in there and figure it out. Those movies kind of suck. But when they're spy movies, they're actually pretty decent. When they don't have a lot of gadgets, or they're realistic gadgets, like the key opener that opens almost 80–90% of all the locks, that's a real thing. That's believable, but it's how creative they are in the use of it. And that's why at this point here, when this movie came out about a year or so later, I was the first one to call you up and tell you you need to go see the Bourne Identity, because it's actually intelligent and it's creative, where Bond has failed to do that for years. And this movie's got nothing in it at all. Tell me it's got anything positive in it, other than maybe the opening scene. Tell me one thing, please. Seriously.
I'm going through this. So, and I, like I said, while we do this, I'm actually going through Netflix. I said that at the beginning. I'll just reiterate. And I'm watching scenes. You talked all the way up to the 30-minute mark. Okay. And I want to bring this up because something you and I agree on, and I mentioned it earlier, is the opening scenes are awesome. The Pierce Brosnan's movies have awesome open credits and scenes. However, I got to talk about the song before we continue. Okay, we talked about the opening scene. He has the chase on the hovercraft. It's awesome. I'm not a big fan of them surfing into where they need to be, but it's pass. Okay, I can live with that because the rest of the scene is really good. I do like the fact that the guy gets the diamonds embedded in his face.
That sounds like it would be cool, doesn't it? That sounds badass, doesn't it?
He looks visually, that is a visually striking character, and I like that. I do like that when you see them, because they're the prisoner trade. I'm going to get to that because I want to go through it from beginning to end here. The opening scene, the opening gambit, you get to meet the brother before he turns into the English guy, which I thought, okay, first of all, if he's going to be turning into an English actor, shouldn't the Chinese guy speak with an English accent, not an American one? That would have been so much more believable had they done that. Okay, yeah, it's that guy. He did if you believe Mission Impossible, you can buy it here that the face changed fine. Then we get the song. Now, I like GoldenEye. It kind of gets there's a certain style of song that James Bond music has. The James Bond songs almost have this operatic kind of thing.
Bombastic, big, absolutely.
Yeah, GoldenEye was more of rock and roll. Tina Turner made it her own, while still delivering what ended up being a good song for James Bond. That was my opinion. Obviously, you thought differently. Then we got two very similar songs to the point where it's almost interchangeable. And then you got Madonna, who didn't write a James Bond song like Tina Turner. She wrote a Madonna song.
Tina Turner didn't write that song. She just sang it.
Well, she sang it. But point being is that whatever this was, it was a Madonna song. It was not a James Bond song.
Correct.
And it did not fit at all. What we're seeing James Bond get tortured, and we're hearing "Gonna Die Another Day." Just shut up. That's it is so annoying, this opening theme song. And without the sequences of torture, it's not even a very good credit sequence, in all honesty.
True. That's true. That's what made it. I mean, honestly, it made it an adult thing. That's what happens. You're going to get your balls banged. Oh, wait, that didn't happen yet.
Yeah. There's just not. Yeah. And then it goes, and it's still pretty good. Because you get him, you get the prison exchange scene. That is fine. He goes back to MI6. He meets him. Absolutely, we are still on track. We are having a good James Bond movie. And then he gets to Havana.
I like the fact that they were in Havana. I liked that. I wanted to like it, and it just Go ahead. I'm sorry.
31 minutes in. 31 minutes in, he gets to Havana, and there's still it's a beautiful area you're looking at. It's absolutely nice. But here's where the movie ends for me. 36 minutes, 10 seconds in.
36 10, what happens?
Wearing the same bikini that Ursula Andress wore comes Halle Berry, possibly the worst actress to ever get famous ever. She is not good, gang. She lucked upon her part in Monster. What has she ever done good since or before that?
Get beaten up by whose husband whose name escapes me. She's a good punching bag.
Nah, she's just she's a good looking woman. I'll give it to her, but from there it kind of goes under. We see the we get to the plastic surgery place. It's a decent enough action sequence, but it's nothing we haven't seen before. As a matter of fact, we saw it in Tomorrow Never Dies as they're trying to leave the newspaper plant, which, by the way, going back to that for a second, not everybody that works for Carver is a henchman. He was killing security guards that were just doing their freaking job in that too, by the way. I would like to point that out. But yeah, just there's not a lot good to say about this. You were okay with the fencing. That's fine. You could tell me because you took fencing.
Didn't like it. The only thing good about this film I tweeted out, and that's the sneer game of Toby Stevens.
Oh, Bulworth. Yes, you're right. Venkman, thank you. Halle Berry was good in Bulworth. I didn't mind the song, You Old Fogey. Well, yeah, well, I did. I freaking, and then
I took a crap when that was on, to be honest with you.
Yeah. The VR thing where James Bond is going through the holodeck. I was like, what the fucking hell? What are you doing? No, James Bond doesn't have a holodeck. Okay. It just doesn't. Oh my gosh. That was horrible. And then since the movie is laying down, somebody wanted to come along and kick the corpse. And they did so at 1 hour, 6 minutes, and 15 seconds. You know what's introduced there, Rob?
I don't know. Tell me.
We get an invisible car. There is an invisible fucking car in James Bond now. That is canon, sir. What do you think about that? I've been talking. You talk for a while. Go off on the invisible car.
In all honesty, watching this film, by the time I got to that point, I'm done. No, I'm serious. I'm just, you have your joys when you grow up and they get smaller as you get older, but they mean more sometimes. And mine's crushed because of this movie.
Okay, I've got to say this is something I do like. He mentions, okay, I got a car for you, and there's an empty platform, and he's okay. He's talking about how Q is going crazy. Of course. Oh, by the way, I am going to say something good here. John Cleese's Q. That's something good. John Cleese nails it. So yeah, there is something good, but that's not because of the movie. He's just Q.
Right.
Same as Desmond Lewis was good in Diamonds Are Forever. It's just Q is cool. So that's there. Of course, he's talking about the car, and James Bond is standing there, and he does the reveal where the car appears. And I love this reaction. He goes, "You have got to be kidding me." That's Pierce Brosnan's reaction. You have got to be kidding me. He spoke for the audience in that moment. So yeah, I that part I did like. And you talk about something else that's positive. Say what you will about everything that's surrounding it. The sets are really good, and that ice palace is amazing. It looks great.
Hey, that's great. Empty film. I could, look through classical, paintings and stuff like that, and Renoir's, Monet's, and all that stuff. I'd enjoy it a lot more. It wouldn't piss me off like that this movie does, because it's Bond with an agenda. They're not interested in making a good film. I understand that, like most, as I would say to you, even though you would disagree, it's about comic book films in general, is that they're just interested in making money. I have no problem with that, but it's just, if you're going to take the least amount of effort possible to make a movie that's going to make as much money. I understand the quality's not going to be high, but don't there's a level of insulting that you shouldn't cross. And as much as people loved GoldenEye, okay, it wasn't for me. Same thing with Tomorrow Never Dies, big time snoozer. I liked World's Not Enough, didn't think it was great, but I thought it was a very good film. This movie is like, I just cannot believe how absolutely atrocious this is. And this is the first time of any movie that there was just obvious hatred about it, even though it made a bucket load of money. I mean, it was just obviously, even though it made a lot of money, people hated it. They didn't like it. They were very vocal about it. And this is when the internet, I really think, started to turn in the early 2000s when it came to people going, well, wait a minute. If we put this in and this, and it's going to appeal to all the audiences, so it'll be a very safe film. And this is what I mean by Bond being progressive. They're not trying to make a Bond film. They're just trying to make a film that has the name Bond in it, and that's it. So again, Bondgate, you decide.
Well, we'll have to talk about this. Maybe we could actually structure a video around it. But like I said, I'm going through this and I'm pointing out all of what I've seen, what what's good, what's bad. And I'm going to tell you right now, the production, the set design, the cinematography, this is a very pretty film.
Don't you expect that, though? I mean, it's
absolutely 100%. But I have to be honest. I have to say what is good and what is bad. And in all honesty, and by the way, the surfing scene where he's wind sailing and you see that is, everybody knows that's the worst. That's possibly the worst moment in James Bond history.
Yeah.
Where the ice shelf falls and it causes the big tidal wave, and there's nothing real here. It's all done CGI, and that's not James Bond, man. And I think here you spoke about superhero movies, and I think that's the big problem. Die Another Day isn't a James Bond movie; it's a superhero film.
Yeah, because they keep trying to get bigger.
Not even a good one. James, if you're going to make James Bond a superhero, he's got to be a Batman style. This is ridiculous. Yeah. It's just done so poorly. Like I said, it looks gorgeous, and I would love to see what's his name, Rick Yoon as Zhao. I would love to have seen him in a better movie because the design was awesome. The diamond face. He's like a 6'4" Asian. He looks pretty freaking scary when he wants to. Awesome.
Scarier than Pierce. And here's the thing with Pierce. Anybody he gets in a fight with, you don't think he can beat their ass. I think that's why they tried doing guns a lot with him, because he just doesn't look like he can take anybody. Now, he looks like he has ownership of his body and he can control himself. I agree with you on that. He's fluid somewhat that way, but he just doesn't come across as physically believable. So I think that's part of the reason why they did all this stuff and just amped up the contraptions besides the product placement. Or actually, it really is the product placement. Let's not beat around the bush. Yeah, okay, whatever.
Okay, so I'm going to end this, by the way. I'm going to put you out your misery. But before I do, I'm going to say one thing 100% that I like about this film that you could yell at me, you could get mad, I don't care. The sword fight, or the actual end fight between Rosamund Pike as Miranda Frost and Halle Berry as Jinx, is tight. That is a good fight. And it might actually, this is the best fight in the film, actually. The little sword fight between the two of them. I've got to give it to the ladies at the end.
How sad.
Yeah, it is, but it's true. That is the best fight scene. So anyway, not a lot of good stuff to say about Die Another Day. That's not a big surprise. We're definitely ending it on a downer note. This is, yeah. What did Bankman say here? They had to do CGI for the end scene, the entire Icarus chase Bond. Yeah, the car chase was ridiculous. I do have to admit that I like him using the ejector seat to flip the car over. I thought that was clever. In a better movie, we would be like, oh, wow, that's really cool. Haha. But in this one, at this point, it's just one more thing, one more ridiculous thing. So it's easy to roll your eyes at it. But had it been, if Sean Connery did it, even in Diamonds Are Forever, I think we would have thought it was really cool. Unfortunately, it happened here at a point where we're just ready to give up. And Rob had already fallen asleep.
I would go out on a positive
Rob
note,
would have
though.
left it. If I went out and saw this with Rob, he would have left the theater, left me in there. He's done this before on bad movies.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, I'm sorry, it's not personal.
No, it's you're not leaving me behind. You know me. I think I've left 2 movies in my entire life, 3 maybe. So yeah, that's just the difference. And it's not like Rob would go see another movie either. He would literally just go sit on a bench because he would rather be on that bench than in the theater watching a bad movie. Yeah. I never understood it, but there you go.
It's just, if I want something dumb, I'll watch Dumb and Dumber, which is a fantastic film, which is better than probably any of these Pierce Brosnan films. But I do want to see something positive since you took the negative out here before we start to wrap it up here. Out of these films here for Pierce Brosnan and Dalton, I mean, well, let's just take the Brosnan. There's 4 of them. We know next week we're going to be talking about the Craig films, the last one being
we're going. I want to do our top 6 the way we normally do.
Oh, we are. Okay. I'm simply saying that with Pierce Brosnan, as bad as I've sounded tonight, and I could have overdone it, I really did, and I was just trying to be a little laid back about it because I know you liked him. I wanted to let the positivity shine from you. Okay. I wanted you to be the sunshine. I will take Pierce Brosnan's 4 films over almost anything that we're going to talk about next week. That's how bad the next films are.
Holy, I really thought you would be a Craig fan. I am so off on that one. Wow. Well, so Venkman is saying his favorite Bonds are the Brosnan Bonds from worst to best are World Is Not Enough, Tomorrow Never Dies, GoldenEye, and Die Another Day. From worst to best?
No, I think you said best to worst is what you said.
Worst to best. Your favorite is Die Another Day? No. Okay.
Oh, he does have worst to best. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. Wow. We are, I think, going to be a little bit different on that. Okay. So anyway, obviously we just talked about, we're not going to go back to World Is Not Enough. We already talked about what we thought about them two as James Bond. Before we do all 6, quickly, what is your worst to best on Brosnan Bonds? Don't do the whole, well, I like this one and all the others are tied for last. Really give me
I never 4. Do that. I give you a definitive answer, sir.
Okay.
What was that voice?
That's my I want to cop out voice.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's quite obvious Die Another Day is the worst. I think for you as well. Coming in 3rd, Tomorrow Never Dies. Snooze fest. I actually have GoldenEye as number 2 because it upset me a little bit, but it's not bad. Mm-hmm. But it's not good. And World's Not Enough is by far hit the best.
Okay. My number 4, yeah, we're absolutely we are the same. Mm-hmm. Die Another Day sucks so much balls. It's horrible. My number 3, as much as I love Wei Lin, as sexy as Michelle Yeoh is, I've got to put Tomorrow Never Dies. I don't think it's a snooze fest. I like the movie. It's just not as good as GoldenEye, which is my number 2.
Oh, we have the same ranking. We've never do that.
Because this time around, when I watched both movies, GoldenEye is a great film to me. I love it. I love it to death. But World Is Not Enough is a James Bond movie, and it's great. I actually did get into the relationship with Pierce Brosnan and Sophie Marceau. A lot of the stuff that bothered me didn't bother me this time. Denise Richards is fine. I really like the callbacks to other movies. I like the callbacks to GoldenEye. So yeah, GoldenEye is a better action film. World Is Not Enough is a better Bond film. But yeah, I like them both. And this might actually change next year, but for right now on this watching, World Is Not Enough was not the number 1 Pierce Brosnan Bond.
Englantine's a Sunshine Sam.
Actually, that's the way it's been between you and I. I've always been a little bit more positive towards the movies and such. Okay, so we're going to rank all of the Bonds, Brosnan and Dalton.
I don't think you can right now. I think you have to keep them separate.
What's your number 6? We're gonna do this. What's your number 6?
Well, it's Die Another Day.
Okay, hold on a second. All right, we're going to rank Brosnan and Bond together, Brosnan and Dalton together. So, sir, what is your number 6?
Actually, you can just keep the four that I told you about with Brosnan, because, you know, while The World's Not Enough might be number one in Brosnan, it would be number three on this list, because number two would be The Living Daylights, number one would be The License to Kill. License to Kill is the best Bond out of this group.
You suck, sir. I was trying to make a video out of this one. Something I could separate and go. You're making it so difficult on me.
Oh, do you want me to just read it off?
My number 6, I would actually, this might surprise you, is actually The Living Daylights.
That's not worse than Die Another Day. No, come on.
You're at, but the same way that you would say Spy Who Loved Me is a better film, but you would rather watch Moonraker. Die Another Day is so far over the top. Die Another Day is so far over the top. It's more.
I don't get it. I just don't.
Kill. Or Living Daylights. Yeah. Die Another Day is so far over the top. It's more entertaining than Living Daylights. Living Daylights is just a flat line.
Toby Stevens cannot sneer enough to carry through The Living Daylights.
It is. He sneers entertaining enough for me to rather watch that than Living Daylights.
I'm shocked.
It's boring as heck. It really is. And then, of course, Die Another Day. And then License to Kill.
Oh,
and then
friggin' spooch machine. This is ridiculous.
And then Tomorrow Never Dies, Goldeneye, and then World Is Not Enough. There you go. Hey, I like what I like, man. And I'm telling you, Tomorrow Never Dies is an entertaining action film. It's an entertaining Bond film. It is fun to watch. License to Kill is a good movie. I'm not saying it's not a good movie, but there you go.
Unbelievable. Speechless.
Absolutely believable.
We knew this was going to happen with the Pierce. I'm going to call this the Pierce effect, because I think, honestly, the real serious Bond stuff, we've had fun so far, and I knew this one was going to be a little contrarian. The real test is going to be next week when we go through Daniel Craig's George Lazenby and the odd Sean Connery film, Never Say Never Again, which is a Thunderball remake, but technically canon, I think. I'm gonna have to research that a bit more, but we are definitely going to go over those and put that to the Xtreme test. So for me, Brosnan Xtreme, he fails the test.
I disagree. Yeah. Although we definitely have to retitle this about maybe about how much we fight on this one. Venkman's agreeing with you. License to Kill is his favorite as well.
It's solid. Yeah. Well, here's the thing.
But it's not a bad movie. I'm not calling it a bad movie. When we talked about it, I enjoy quite a bit about it. It's just when you line it up, sorry, it comes in number 4th. And here's the thing, it's like a huge drop from number 5 to number 4. You know, where this is not steps here. I
think the only movie that you can take out of Pierce Brosnan's and put it with any of the others is The World Is Not Enough. I think you put Dalton's with any of the others, where Connery might have had a real turd burglar and then maybe a bad one, or just one that's forgettable. And I said this about Roger Moore last week intentionally, even though we weren't too high maybe on some of his films, we said you can pretty much watch all of them and they're entertaining, even though he may have had a bad one. And I think overall he was on average slightly better than Connery in terms of watchability, whatever you want to call that. I think Dalton's up there, but with only 2 films, it's hard to say. But Brosnan is just not watchable. Out of everything we've discussed about so far in terms of groups, he's the least watchable to me. I
disagree, obviously, but that's what makes
He played Bond. He was not Bond.
Okay. I'm not James Bond, but
it's science.
Movies.
All right, final thoughts there, Englentine, before we call it.
Well, you and I are definitely on different sides of the fence as far as the Pierce Brosnan Bonds are concerned. That's fine. Like I said, that's what makes it interesting when we get on here. If we agreed on everything, it is something that we agreed in the order that the Brosnan Bonds fell. But when it comes right down to it, I like him a lot better than Timothy Dalton. I don't think Timothy Dalton ever really got a chance to get into the role. So, and I think
fantastic. Not even close.
Say again.
The 2 roles he had, those 2 movies he had, not even close. Just totally buried Pierce with a shovel.
I agree. It's not.
He took his cigarette that he was smoking in both films and just put it out on his nice, really nice Brioni suit while
What
driving the original, really nice, hot, sexy car rather
you
than some
know?
invisible piece
You
of
know,
crap.
you keep saying that we should watch one movie. I need to get you on the positive side of Pierce Brosnan. We need to talk about the
I don't
Matador.
dislike Pierce. I
We need
do
to,
not.
yeah, and I know if you say bad things about the Matador, though, I know you're lying.
I do like the Matador.
Yeah, yeah. All right, but no, that's all I gotta say. That's all I gotta say about this.
All right. As everybody listening tonight and those who are about to listen in the future, thank you for coming. We're going to be doing another show next week that's going to be reviewing the last of the Brosnan films. We may do another one after that, right?
Last of the Bond films. We're gonna be doing Daniel Craig and George
Pierce
Lazenby
is on my
and
mind all the time.
yeah,
There's going to be
there you
some
go.
major ups and major downs in this next one too. So I think as we go along on our James Bond adventure here, we're going to get some interesting feedback because the fight's only just begun, sir.
All righty.
All right. As always, check out Englentine's other channel, I Love Comics. The madly famous, just popped 15,000 subs channel, and this one here where we've just popped 12. I think that's pretty awesome. That's fantastic. We're going to double that by next week. That's
Yay, we're gonna hit 24.
And
Woo!
unlike Pierce Brosnan, I want everybody to just understand this. Stay extreme. Have a good night.
Good night, guys.